Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody back, Alabama Care. Today we have Mrs. Tonya Frankum and Mrs. Yolanda Spencer, ADRS Project Search, and we're going to be talking about employment and transition from the high school to kind of long term. And at this point, I'd like to hand it over. Mrs. Frankum, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Tonya Frankum. I'm a rehabilitation specialist for the Alabama Department of Rehab Services. I work alongside the state team and a statewide transition coordinator, and we work together coordinating transition services for our department.
Now, you're originally from Alabama.
Yes.
And we always like to ask, is it War Eagle or Roll Tide?
Well, it started out War Eagle is how I was raised, but I married in 2004, and my husband is definitely a Roll Tide, and so all of our tickets are to Alabama games, and we only sit in the Alabama section, and he doesn't like to watch games with anybody but Alabama team supporters. So my house and my children all wear Alabama, and I got my master's from Alabama, so it's a Roll Tide.
Heck yeah, Roll Tide. And I'd like to ask a little bit of background, Mrs. Frankum, kind of work experience and how you came to be in the current position you are with ADRS.
I got my master's from Alabama in rehabilitation, and because I attended the Alabama branch in Gadsden, I'm from Anniston, Alabama. So while I was in Gadsden, I was sent over to meet with Connie Brecken, who's the supervisor still today at the Gadsden VR office, to ask or beg for a internship. And Connie told me no. She said, no, you live in Anniston, you need to go see Robert Watson, which was the supervisor in Anniston. And I did. And he said, come on, darling, start tomorrow. So I just started doing my internship there with Robert Watson. And about, I started in October. No, I started in August. And in October, a new program came about called Welfare to Work. And that was a contract program. And it was brand new. I was one of the very first people they hired. And that's how I got to be paid while I was doing my internship. So it started there, and there had never been anybody leave Anniston VR office, and they had all been there seasoned for a long, long time. And I got lucky. Someone in our office got married to someone in Birmingham, and they left. And by July of the next year, I was able to apply for that job. I was graduated and ready to go, and I slid right in. So I guess it was meant to be. And then I'm now in Huntsville. So my husband took a job in Decatur and is now in Huntsville, and I had to go where he went. So I ended up here.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I've been up to Decatur. I feel like Decatur is growing rapidly. The home prices there are going through the roof. I have some friends and family that live up there. Beautiful area of the country there. Mrs. Spencer, if you would introduce yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Yolanda Spencer. I'm with the Alabama Department of Rehab Services. I am the VR field supervisor for in-school project search programs. And what that means is that I work with transition age students and adults with disabilities, helping them with identifying and exploring the jobs that are out in the workforce. So how I started out with Alabama Goodwill Industries Community Rehabilitation Program as a supported employment director, and worked in that position for a year and a half. My director decided he was going to become the executive director with Goodwill, and he said, I think you should apply for my position. So I transitioned into his position as director of rehabilitation services and worked in that position about 5-6 years. And, working in that role, I got to meet some very nice people. At that time, we used to have facility specialists with the Alabama Department of Rehab Services that paid the salaries of the employees of those community rehab programs. And so she sat on this ad hoc committee and said they're looking for a project manager with Auburn University to work with rehab administrators and directors in the 8 southeastern states. And I went, whoa, okay. And so having those connections. And so therefore, the director of the program at Auburn drove up to Goodwill. It technically was not an interview. It was more just having a conversation. And her next question by the end of it was, so when do you want to start? So it was like, wow, okay, February. So I did that. So I worked at Auburn for 3 years. And then that was a grant funded position. And from there, transitioning again, knowing it's all about, like Tonya said, knowing the right people. So when the grant ran out, someone called the Tuscaloosa VR supervisor and said, hey, do you have an opening? And she said, yes. And so I talked to her on the phone and she said, well, when do you want to start? So I was like, oh, wow. So I started out in Tuscaloosa as a VR counselor with ADRS for 15 years. And then transitioned to Birmingham as a VR counselor as well. And I've been a supervisor, a unit supervisor for 12 years. So I've been with the agency 27 years and came on board with Project Search 2 years ago. So excited to be here. Yes.
Thank you,
So
Bert.
I'm gonna say War Eagle, okay?
I was just gonna ask you, it started off with Auburn, then it went to Tuscaloosa, so I wasn't sure which one that was. Well, you guys will be watching the same game on Iron Bowl then, I imagine. Big
I'll
Alabama.
be watching, but I'll be cheering for Auburn.
Today we're going to be talking about Project Search, and I'd like to hand that over for anyone that's not familiar with Project Search. What exactly is it?
Well, I'll take the part about in-school because I work with the in-school youth. So Project Search is a one-year internship program that takes place traditionally in a hospital setting where we have 10 to 12 students that have the opportunity to learn some job skills, do 3 9-week job rotations within the hospital, and then learn those transferable work skills so that we may go ahead and start looking for employment for those individuals. So that's the part that I work with those students who are in school. But the goal is, of course, competitive employment for them.
And at what age do you really start? Do those individuals start in Project Search?
Well, they have to be in their final year of school, high school. So 18 to 22 is the population that we target for Project Search, the in-school Project Search program.
And you mentioned a lot of hospital there. Does it mainly deal just with the hospital, or are there other employers that are involved in Project Search?
Well, for us in Alabama, I'll say that traditionally we started with all of our Project Search programs being in hospital because that was the model program for, based on National Project Search. And so what we're doing now is we're kind of exploring, looking at different host sites, looking into trying to get into manufacturing, warehousing, distribution. Because of COVID, it was a very difficult year last year, all with our sites being in hospital settings. So now we're in some of the hotels, and that's been a blessing for us as well.
Now, you mentioned a national Project Search there. I was just thinking about Alabama's Project Search, but what are you seeing at the national level, and do you correspond with other states there?
Absolutely. We just attended the National Project Search Conference. And to just give you a little background about Project Search started in 1996 with 2 people who had this wonderful idea with Children's, I think it was Children's Hospital in Cincinnati. So Erin Real, and I hope I don't mess up Susan Rakotsky, what's her name? Rakotsky, or whatever it is, her last name. You had one who was an administrator and one was a special education administrator. And they brought students in to do, I guess, what we would call like work-based learning. And they saw that these students were able to perform the essential functions of these jobs. And that's how Project Search was born, 1996. And from there, we have grown on a national level. Project Search now is serving, they have 632 programs, sites, 48, they're in 48 states, in 10 countries, serving 31,975 people with disabilities.
You said 31,000 there.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yes, it is.
And Mrs.
And
Frankum,
the programs are, and they're growing. That's the thing, the programs are continuing to grow.
I think this is a big thing that we hear consistently is working, and the importance of going out and producing during the day and feeling good about the work that you do. Mrs. Frankum, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Project Search.
So in 2018, I was part of a team that wrote a grant for through Workforce to ask for money to help support an out-of-school program. So we were able to fund 3 out-of-school youth Project Search programs. And we did those according to Project Search because we knew that Project Search worked. And we knew that so many of the young people that leave high school that didn't get an opportunity to participate in Project Search when they were in high school could then have an opportunity as a youth on their own. Maybe they missed some training. Maybe they didn't get enough in-depth training while they were in their last year of school. So we were successful in getting funding in Decatur, Alabama, Fort Payne, Alabama, and Gadsden. We now have just the one program in Gadsden that is an out-of-school youth program, but it's exactly like the transition program, other than we take ages 18 to 24, and you have to be out of school, not in school, in order to participate in our program. And our partners are a little different because the school's not involved. We're more involved with adult ed instead of the school program. So it's very similar. It mimics Project Search. It's just a different partner, and the kids are not in school.
So it's really focusing on that key transition age as you're transitioning out of the education system and into kind of long-term living and making sure that individuals are presented with opportunities for employment and long-term employment. And from what I've read and done a little bit of research, it's a very hands-on kind of transition there, and taking that individual through the process, letting them get their feet wet in the environment that they're going to be working in, and kind of helping everybody involved, the employer, the employee, see what that's like. Now, how many individuals has Project Search served here in Alabama since you said 96?
Well, I would say the in-school program started in 2012, and we grew to 12 programs. And so under that, so far, I mean, we've served in the in-school program 815 youth, and with the employment outcome rate anywhere from 75% to 100%.
75%, that's huge. That means if somebody is coming and asking to be employed, you guys have a 75% employment rate there.
75 to 100%, yes.
That's kind of unheard of. I can't tell you how many times I've filled out an application to get a job, but I haven't heard anything back. So that's through the roof there. And how many are currently in Project Search this year?
Well, I can only speak about ours. So for our program, since we're down to the one out-of-school youth program, we've just started, and we have a solid 12 that are starting this year. And overall for our projects, we've had right at 100 that we've served since 2018.
And I'll say with the in-school programs, pre-COVID, we had 12 sites, 12 youth in-school sites. And so this fiscal year, of course, last year with COVID, we had 9 sites that went on hiatus because we were all in a hospital setting, and COVID, of course we were not allowed to be back in the hospital. So we had 3 sites that decided to remain and did external job training rotations with our interns. And so, but this year coming back, we have 9 that have returned, and we have 3 that are still on hiatus, and they'll be returning next year, FY22.
I'd like to
as well as growing. I'm sorry, just saying, as well as growing the program, we got 3 additional new sites coming up for FY22 as well. So we're real busy. There's a lot of when people ask what's going on, what's good going on in Alabama, I would say Project Search, because there are a lot of people who just don't know about what's out there and what's available. And this is a program that allows students that opportunity to have that independence, that self-advocacy, learn those job skills, and then go to work, because the goal again is competitive employment.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine right now, kind of coming out of this pandemic, there are a lot of people that are looking for employment and eager to work. I know I'm always eager to get outside the house. I feel like I've been cooped up here for the last year and a half. And so I'm sure that the enrollment is going to continue to go up. And I'll ask that question of, well, let's ask it now. How does someone get involved with Project Search?
Well, school systems have to reach out and ask or have a desire to want to have a project search program. And from that point, we sit down and start talking about planning that process and what that process looks like. And then bringing on a host site. We have to have a site to host the program. And then other key stakeholders that serve on those committees, like Department of Mental Health. We have community rehabilitation program service providers, the Disability Developmental Council, and the State Department of Education, because they provide one of the staff. So they provide a school teacher for the program. So it takes about a year and a half, 2 years to start planning for a program to be started.
Now, once a program is up and running, can, excuse me, like here in Region 5, can I just call ADRS and say, I want to be involved with Project Search?
There has to be one in your area. So if there's one in your area, like for mine being out of school, there's no school involvement. So if you meet the criteria, you're 18 to 24 and you can get to the project, you know, you have to be able to physically get there at the start time and then be able to leave at the end of the day. So that's why location matters. Most people that are struggling to find employment or need assistance don't always have great transportation, or for long distances, it costs a lot of money to travel any further than maybe within so many miles of the hospital or the location of the job. So I would think that it'd be in your area if it was an out-of-school program would be the only way that you would truly benefit, unless you had extra good family support that could travel outside those walls. But then with the school program, Yolanda can elaborate, but you would need to be in that school system and they would have to have an active program for you to participate.
Absolutely. Tonya is absolutely correct. We do get a lot of phone calls from students that are in parents that students are in other districts, but their district does not have a project search program. So you have to be a student from that particular school system to be a part of project search.
Now, I'm hearing kind of two environments when you're speaking about project search. I'm hearing either the school system and ADRS, and then I'm also hearing the site, which is the employer. What does that look like for the individual? Are they going to start going out to ADRS or start working with project search in the schools and then transition into the workplace?
Well, for my program, okay.
Go ahead, Tonya.
Well, for my program, you're going to start, your first starting point's always ADRS, because you're not going to get into the program. It doesn't matter which program. You have to have an ADRS counselor, a VR counselor. You've got to be eligible for our program, for any gamut of our program. You know, we're not just limited to Project Search. Project Search is just one of our amazing programs. So in order to get in the door, you're going to need to be part of ADRS. From there, you're going to lead to that partnership with a school or the partnership with your community programs, working together to get them in the program, approved for the program, and ready to go. And then once they are ready to go for the program, the hospital has already graciously invited us in. We usually have a classroom already set up at the business, wherever that is, whether it be a hospital or a different business. So the hospital is just our host. And so the main gateway is always the Department of Rehab Services, and then they'll move you through the program, get you where you need to be. But with a school program, and then the business and ADRS all working together, because there's transportation, there's the daily task where they have to be, what time they have to be there, what time they have to be picked up. So the host business is just our place to be and participate, and they're gracious enough to let us be there to actually help train our people once we get through the educational piece and the hands-on work-based learning. Because, you know, this program is work-based learning in its truest form, where you're on site in the classroom, learning educational pieces to it, but also getting to experience real work on site.
And I'll speak a little bit more to the in-school piece of that. We rely heavily upon our, as Tonya said, our VR counselors, the special education teachers, to kind of help us with marketing and recruiting students for Project Search. And then there's an interview process, an assessment process, and then we select at least 10 to 12 candidates for the program. So there is a process for going through or trying to get accepted into the program. But every student with a disability has a right to apply the program. It's just the committee and the team will make the decision who gets in. It's a beautiful thing to have a waiting list of people that are wanting to get into the program. So it's really about educating. And again, parents don't fully understand. Sometimes the students don't fully understand, making that transition from high school to employment. But you see the adjustments once they come in and they have that 2 or 3 weeks of orientation at the host site, the hospital, a lot of them, again, at the host site. And then to see them flourish because we're on a school calendar year from August to May. And so to see them flourish from the beginning, coming in just kind of unsure about themselves, not knowing really what to expect. And then by the second rotation, you have employers that are asking to hire them, and so that is the goal of the program. But we want to make sure that they, of course, learn the skills that they need in order to learn those transferable work skills, I guess you would say, so that they can go out and work in competitive employment.
Now, you mentioned that anybody can apply as long as you're receiving services through ADRS. How many people apply versus how many get accepted? So if there are 12 people that get accepted, do you have 100 applicants?
It varies. No, no. For the in-school programs, believe it or not, sometimes the biggest barrier for us is recruiting for the program because parents just don't know about it. And it's educating teachers about Project Search, holding those informational meetings with parents about Project Search, because, it's kind of like when you're in high school, that's a safety net for you. Now you're talking about making that transition to another place. So it's about educating, working with the families to kind of help them with that transition as well as we move them through the program. So to have, if we had 100 people applying for Project Search at one site, that would be an awesome blessing to have right there. So yes, we would love that. Love it.
It makes me think of writing an applicant to get into college, getting an acceptance letter. It makes me nervous. Having to do a standardized test or something like that. I'd like to ask, why hospitals? That seems like a base for Project Search. Why that employer and not, say, another employer?
Well, I think because that was the model program for Project Search at its inception, 1996. And other states, and I would say Alabama, we just continue to follow that process of looking at hospitals for our programs. However, we are branching out. Like I said, we're now in hospitality, hotels, and we're also in distribution centers. So we're working to kind of change that concept. So we're thinking a little different because COVID made us start looking at how, it just shut everything down. And so it just closed programs down. And we saw that this was something that was a need. And if we could explore and branch out to other entities, that would be great for us.
And I'll add too that when you think about hospitals, you think about there are tons of jobs. And when you've got 12 candidates that you want to train in 3 different types of rotations, when you think of a hospital, there are thousands of jobs that go on in a hospital every day. There's not just folding towels. I mean, there's multitudes and multitudes of jobs. I mean, patient care, there's food service, there's EVS, which is environmental services, but there's even more than that. There's pharmacies attached to the hospital where people can get their medications. There's people that go around and check on the patients. You've got to sanitize the equipment. There's multitudes of things that you can learn in a hospital that can translate to thousands of jobs outside the hospital as well. So when you think of a restaurant, you've got bussing tables, making food and taking orders. That's okay. But in a hospital, you've got thousands of jobs that you can help train someone in, and also take that out of the hospital to another location if that's what you need to do.
Yeah, that seems like a very good point there. If you make partnerships with the hospital, you have a lot of access to the different resources and experiences that you need. It's kind of its own little community. Like when I go to St. Vincent's, it seems like its own little world when I'm in there. I get lost and there's just a whole community there.
And what we found is that in a hospital setting, a lot of our interns get hired and they have high turnover. And our interns, once they're hired, they don't leave. They have excellent work ethics and work habits. And so has been an ideal situation for us. However, again, COVID is forcing us to kind of look at things a little differently, kind of branch out a little bit more to other businesses.
I'd like to kind of take a step back a little bit and talk about employment in general. So if there is somebody that is high school age student or looking for work and not sure if they want to do it, or they may have some family that are a little bit nervous about them getting employed, what is the importance of employment for everyone? And if you would speak a little bit about that. Mrs. Frankum, I'll ask you to kind of start us off there.
Well, I was a vocational rehab counselor for 15 years, 16 years before I ever started doing what I do now. And I used to always say to every parent, to every person, is that remember, you have a talent. What is it? We don't know sometimes. Sometimes you come into the world knowing exactly what your talents are, and you have all the things that you need to make those talents happen. But sometimes you just don't know. There's perfectly able individuals that walk around for a long time and have no clue what they want to do with their future. And even a lot more graduate, go to college, and until they start talking to people, meeting people, engaging other people and learning about things, they don't know what they want to do. And it's until they make those connections that they learn what they're good at, what they want to do. And you've got to experience things. I learned very early on that I did not like selling clothes. I mean, I hated it, but I did it because I had to pay my way through college. But it helped me make a decision. That was one thing off the list. And then I hated food service. I mean, as we move through things and experience things, we're able to make those decisions. But when you have a disability that limits you, quite often you don't get to experience half the things that people your age are getting to experience. So everybody has talent. So I would think for employment, it's good overall. For finding your forever job makes you feel good. It boosts your self-esteem. It gives you worth. I think self-worth is the main thing that anybody needs, and employment gives that. Employment's not just about making money. It's really kind of about having some self-worth, finding what it is, what your purpose is in this world, and being driven by that. And if you don't have anything to be driven by, it makes you sometimes depressed, sometimes not able. Eventually you get to the point to where socialization is even harder. So we want them to have experiences, have a couple of different things so that you can start marking things off your list and learning who you are, what you're good at, and what your talent is.
Yeah, it's experiencing life right there. Mrs. Spencer, if you'd like to add anything.
Yeah, I was just going to add that both of us have been VR counselors. So once a counselor, it doesn't matter what position you transition over into, you're always thinking like a counselor. So, but one of the things that we are doing in the high schools, 9 through 12, is we're providing transitional services, pre-employment transitional services to students in high schools to start introducing them to the world of work, workplace readiness, job exploration, job shadowing, counseling with them on looking at post-secondary opportunities that are out there and available for them, looking at other internships, apprenticeship. We want them to take advantage of all these opportunities that are available for them so they can make a decision about what they want to do after high school. I think every school system and VR counselor in our agency's goal is that the students, when they're exiting high school, should have a plan in place for what they want to do post high school. And so once you're a counselor, always a counselor, always thinking about what you can do, because that not only does that student become your consumer of ADRS, the family does, because you're working with everybody to help educate them again on what's out there and what's available. So students really have to see it, touch it, and feel it so they can make some good choices about what it is they want to do after high school.
Yeah, I think
it just happens that Project Search is one of them. Just happens that Project Search is one of them.
I think the experience there is really important because you really don't know if you're going to enjoy that work until you kind of jump in. I remember in college, I knocked doors, sold alarm systems, and that was an eye-opening experience. But I knew long-term that I didn't want to knock on doors for the rest of my life. And I think you have to, the earlier you can get that experience, the better. And it kind of formulates, hey, I'm good at this. I recognize this is something that I could excel at, but maybe it's not in this form. So getting that experience earlier, I think, is good. And Mrs. Frankum, you kind of touched on it, that sometimes individuals with disabilities don't get that experience, whether that early work experience. So this is kind of giving them an opportunity to And when you say hospitals there, giving them an opportunity to jump in a melting pot of learning experiences for work. And that's very cool. And I think one thing that a lot of people in high school and even college, they get the question, you know, what do you want to do? What kind of work do you want to do for the rest of your life? And it can feel very daunting. And you don't have to go necessarily into college saying, this is what I'm going to major in, this is who I'm going to get hired by, and this is what I'm going to do for the next 40 years of my life. So for anybody that's thinking about getting into project search, this doesn't have to be what you're going to do for the next 20 or 30 years. But I would recommend giving it a shot there.
Absolutely.
I've heard the word rotation here a couple times on screen. What does that mean in project search, a rotation?
Well, with our interns, they come in, they start in August, and what we have an on-site team, which is the teacher, the project search teacher, and 2 skills instructors, one part-time, one full-time. And they start working before the students come in to kind of do some job matching on what rotation sites are available for us to work in, and they start rolling them out 2 weeks after they kind of do some orientation, employability training with them, and they start rolling them out into the different job rotations, and they have to do 3. But what we're trying to do is just have them to gain those work experiences in various departments within the hospital setting, so that they will have those transferable work skills, so they can work whether in the hospital or out in the community. It's their choice. And so a lot of what we have, some employers or some of the hospital sites that we work with, they hire, I will say UAB, hires about 80% of our students at the hospital. So that's a wonderful thing to have. And others, you know, pursue employment outside of the hospital.
Now, how long does a rotation typically last?
Is it 3 9-week? I can't even remember if it's 9 weeks or 3 9-week or 10-week rotations.
So 3 9.
Provided they're not offered a job during the first rotation.
Mm-hmm. That's quite a bit. I was thinking rotations of maybe like a week or 2, but 9 weeks is quite a time to really immerse yourself in that job and with that manager to get a good feel for it.
Well, and remember that most of the project searches for most significantly are significantly disabled. I mean, we're talking about people that have some pretty significant issues that we're trying to adjust and learn from, and sometimes carve out to make sure it's the right things and the right directions are being given to teach them how to do those things. You know, sometimes we're working on a lot of things in that period of time. We don't want to rush anything until we know we have a solid employee that's trained and ready to go. So usually 9 to 10 weeks on the first rotation is a huge learning experience. I mean, that's when you're really identifying a lot about yourself. You're learning a lot about your environment, the people around you. You're getting to know they have a mentor that's there with them. You're getting to know everything there is to know about starting a new job. And then the second rotation, the hospital knows them. They've already started to formulate friends. I mean, they're starting to enjoy actually working, and now they're motivated. Now they're ready to get a job. They want to get paid to work. And if they're ready, if we felt like they were ready, then obviously we would support them and going ahead, especially if the hospital said we really would like to hire them. But the second rotation is really pivotal, and that's where they really get more seasoned and they're really ready, and we're able to identify anything that we think we need to work on before they're placed in a job. We want them to be good employees, so we like for them to have a full 2 rotations, but project search is set up for them to have 3 because it's a year-long program. So the third one, we're already, a lot of them, because we have a great, like she said, employment rate, 75-80% go to work. So they're sought after. By the time they're in their 3rd rotation, we've already got people asking to hire them a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Now, during those rotations, is it what's the class size? Is there 5 or is it all 12 individuals doing that one rotation with a mentor in the work experience, in the environment, or what does that look like?
We may have multiple. We may have 1 or 2 that may be in that particular job rotation, but the goal is to kind of have them immersed in various rotations within the hospital. We have a business liaison that works with us to help identify additional job sites within the hospital for our interns to do rotations in. So it varies from, and one of the beautiful things also is seeing one of our interns, former interns, working with a new intern that's coming in to help set up those natural supports and training them. So that's a beautiful thing to see as well.
Yeah, that's very awesome. And if I would think like as an individual, if I'm going into Project Search and I'm going into a hospital setting, or if I'm a parent, I might be a little bit nervous. Like I feel like I'm going to be thrown in there with people I don't know in a new environment. And I would like a little bit of security there. So is there a little bit of security? There's a mentor with me. Or if you could speak a little bit about that.
Well, again, we have 3 on-site staff. We have a Project Search instructor and 2 skills instructors. And you have some interns you can go in and you set up those natural supports or a mentor in that work department. And if somebody requires a little bit more job coaching, then they kind of rotate out who they would be working with to provide that job training. Okay. And then they kind of back off and start following up with them, just making sure that everything is going okay.
And we do try to get them a mentor. Like, there's usually that's their natural support too. It's not somebody to oversee them. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to give the hospital any work at all. That's on our team to do the work, but we do like a mentor, someone that's there. If it's even to nudge, if there's this little simple thing, or maybe they just get confused for a second. It's not something you'd call a job coach for. It's something that just says, oh, and we're going to go to lunch in a few minutes if you want to sit with us. It's somebody that makes them feel connected to that department. Right. Because we like for them to eat lunch with their people, whatever time everybody goes to eat, we want them to eat. We want everything to be just as if they were an employee. So the mentors are really important because it also makes them feel less afraid or nervous while they don't feel like they're all alone, because our skills trainers can't be there every second. I mean, there's a teacher and 2 skills trainers, and then there's 12 interns at various locations. So mentors are great.
I love how you point out the process of like going to eat and saying, hey, we have an open chair here if you'd like. That takes me back to like middle school and having to go to a new school and get in the cafeteria. Like I know nobody, I'm just standing there with my tray, very awkward. So to have that person that's like, hey, why don't you come join us? We're just hanging out. Makes it much more lively and a welcoming environment there.
That inclusion is very important to them being self-advocates for themselves and feeling like they are part of that department, they're part of that team, and going to lunch with them, and doing activities also within the hospital. They have special events that they participate in as well. So they are certainly immersed in everything that's going on with the hospitals.
Now, you both have a year's experience with Project Search and ADRS. I'd like to hand it over and allow you to highlight a success story of an individual going through Project Search. And Mrs. Frankum, if you would start us off there.
I have a whole lot of success stories, but one in particular, I always think of this particular person because it was my first experience with Project Search. It was our very first year. We were starting a new project in DeKalb County. It's huge. The county is very large, and their transportation is an issue. There are no programs in that area. If you don't get what you need in school and the basics of your regular voc rehab program of job coaching and job seeking, support employment, which is all great too, Project Search was just something they didn't have. And I remember we were just starting and I was going to help with parent interviews. And a mom walked in with her son and he was holding her hand and his head was down. And she was talking to him like a child in a way that wasn't that she was being derogatory toward him. It was that's kind of where he was. And she was speaking to him very childlike. And I thought, oh my goodness, he seemed so young for this program, but he wasn't. And he would not talk to me. He would not look at me. He would not acknowledge me at all and put his head in his mom's shoulder like my child would, who's 6, And I thought, oh, this program is going to be so hard for him. But he would not speak the first month of the program. We did accept him. we had the exact number to apply for the program. It was brand new, and we wanted to give him a chance because he really did want to work. So he had told his mom. His mom had never let him out from under her other than when she sent him to school. But the big success there, to wrap up, was that after he came in, it took a month to get him to speak. And once he started to talk a little, even a little bit, just a few chosen words, he finally said, I want to work in the pharmacy. Well, that was a very difficult department to get in. You've got to be able, you can't mess up in pharmacy. I mean, that's a serious section. And the hospital said, well, you know, we don't know about that, but and even if he could, he'd need his pharmacy tech, like a certification. And we asked if we could just get him the basic certification to get him in and let him just see how he did. And they allowed us to do that. It was an online certificate, and he came in, and later he went and got his pharmacy certification, you know, that takes 6 months, and he went through all the education piece. He took the testing and passed it. And the big success for me is that when I looked at him, I thought he would never make it, that there's no way. He would not talk. He would not make eye contact. He did not want to let go of his mother. It was almost like a child. But now we bring him back to speak to our new interns. And that's the success I saw, is that though at home, when you're at home, it doesn't matter how good your parents are. There are things your children should be doing that you don't recognize, and you tend to do for them because you love them differently. People on the outside in the world don't love your children like you do. Not on the inside, not where we all love our children. And so we tend to do for them. And I can even see with my own son, when I go to school and they say, Baylor, clean up your mess, he cleans it up. At home, I go behind him cleaning his mess. And I think that when you have a disability, sometimes your parents can't see past that, but we take them and we love them, but we see all the value in them that they can give back in their community. You're looking at them as the value of your child, but we're seeing them as a value, an asset to an employer, an asset in the community. And so for me, that was a tremendous success to see him get up on a podium and speak to other new people coming into the program in long sentences and look them in the eye and tell them why the program worked for him. That's a huge success. And that one has stood out to me from day one, and I believe it will always be my most favorite success.
Mrs. Spencer, I'm going to ask you also to share a success story. Before I do, I would like to ask both of you, do you notice that happens quite frequently, where sometimes parents or family have maybe limiting beliefs, or not limiting beliefs, but they're used to doing these things. And finally, when the child gets out from under the parent, they kind of spread their wings, and grow into that.
Right. Yes, you see that a lot. It's like Tonya says, it's kind of like when you have children, it may be one that you can give them a little bit and they'll just fly, and then the other you may have to walk them through that process a little bit more. So yeah, we see that a lot. But as far as success stories, for me, I'm like Tonya, we got many of them that we could share, but I'll share the one that meant a lot to me last year, dealing with the one of the 3 sites that we had that moved forward with COVID. This young man was a student who had a hearing impairment, and when I came in to speak to the class, he came over to me and said, "Can you remove your mask? I don't understand what you're saying." So he was educating me and others in the classroom, his peers, the teachers, the staff, how to work with him, in addition to his special counselor who was working with him. And so they bought these clear masks so that he could communicate with them, and they could communicate with him as well. So he did not want to work in a hospital setting. He wanted to work in retail. So he got a job at Dollar General as a cashier full time. And then the second step was he became a key holder. Well, I don't know how important you think that position is, but that is a very important position in retail, when you hold the key to open and close the store. So now he's in training for assistant manager, and we're going to be asking him to come back and speak to the next class coming in that's going to be graduating next year. So that was just awesome, teaching us how to communicate with him based on his disability. Sometimes you get that. It's like we have to learn that disability etiquette, how to work with those individuals and how to communicate with those individuals. And it's just a lot. So yeah, we see a lot of, to see students go on and get their become certified nursing assistants. They started out with different rotations and now they're certified CNA. So there are a lot of great stories that we could share today about the population that we work with in Project Search. But it's just an awesome program, again, where those students get to gain those skills and they can utilize those skills to transfer over into different jobs.
And there is a success story on YouTube. I looked up Project Search and ADRS. I think it was UAB I saw as a YouTube video about 2 to 3 minutes long of an individual kind of going through that process. Really cool. As you were going through that story, I applaud that young gentleman for coming up to you and asking you to wear kind of a see-through mask. That self-advocacy there that he's learning and experiencing in the community and speaking up for himself and what he needs is huge. If you guys could give us some examples of what types of jobs are individuals being hired for? I know you said that you had one that was in the pharmacy, another in retail. If you could give a few more examples for anybody that's interested, what their options are.
Oh, I've had some that were hired in central sterilization, again, the pharmacy department. We have one that is he's a certified phlebotomist. I think we talked about him 2 years ago, but now he does vitals and do vitals for patients. And this is a huge endeavor for him because he's an individual who's on the spectrum. But working in warehouse, environmental services, human resources, where they may be taking pictures, entering data into the computers, front desk clerks, maintenance, medical records. So it just kind of goes on and on where our individuals are going to work.
Mrs. Frankum, is there anything you'd like to add there?
Well, I wanted to say, well, just briefly that one of the things that Workforce pushes and our agency is trying to be on the forefront of getting people credentials, not just getting jobs, but finding skills that they can get with real credentials moving forward. And that's hard to do in Project Search because of the different variety of disabilities that you have. But with our out of school youth program, we've had a little more leeway where we could kind of work with some people, like the one that wanted the pharmacy certification. And then we've had two since then that were really good with the patients that we helped get in the CNA programs, so that many of the nursing homes were struggling, needing help, and they are still working and doing great. And that was even among the pandemic. There's a big need for help in nursing homes and at the hospitals. So even though we struggled some with having our programs train in those areas, they really need employees. So I would say that credentials are important too, and that is one area we struggle with, but we had really good success the last year with two that wanted to be certified nurse aides. So we were able to get them hired in the nursing home. So I thought that was pretty neat.
I can attest as somebody that is involved with a provider. The hiring right now is we are looking for people, such as a nursing home location kind of thing. How has the pandemic affected Project Search and hiring and employment in general? Mrs. Spencer, if you would talk a little bit about that.
Well, again, let me speak to the ones who we call it the calm after COVID, because these are the 3 sites that continue to move forward and utilize external job sites. And I'm so proud to say that of those 3 sites that decided to move forward, I would say, can I call them out? Marshall County, Tuscaloosa, and Shelby County, they all had 90 to 100% employment outcomes. So that said a lot. And these interns were working in situations, and we've had where staff had COVID, the consumers had COVID, but they endured and they moved on. And so that's a wonderful thing to, to kind of talk about, not having that fear. Teaching them how to be safe in a work environment was very critical for us. And employers, because they needed good employees, they were able to go ahead and transition into employment immediately. So as Tonya said, we like to look at that second rotation. And a lot of them got hired the second rotation, third rotation, because they needed employees. And we're seeing signs everywhere right now, all the sign-on bonuses. But our interns right now, when they're working in our program, they're not working for money. It's an unpaid internship. Want to be clear about that. And so we have to, with young adults, sometimes money motivates them. But we want to reassure them that with this program, they're going to gain some valuable job skills that at the end is competitive employment. We'll start looking for employment for them at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Frankum, is there anything you'd like to add about the pandemic that we've been through and are going through?
No, other than that, like she said, the major challenge was losing our sites in some areas and having to go outside and talk to new employers about outside rotations to help our youth still get the training that they needed. I will say that with the youth, we didn't lose as many because they're not in school and they really want to go to work. They need a job and they were excited to train. So we were fortunate in that there was a lot of employers that were hiring. So we had even a higher success rate in placement this year. The downside was it took a lot more time to train because we would be trickling along and then someone would get sick, whether that would be the employment site would sometimes have to shut down. The skills trainer would get sick and they had been around certain ones and they would all have to quarantine. So it took more time. It was meticulous and that we had to wait sometimes a couple of weeks to get back started, depending on what was happening. But thank goodness everybody recovered. And at the end, we still had plenty of time and everybody went to work and it's still doing well. In fact, I just got pictures today of several of them. They went around and checked on to see if they were still doing well. So our employers are hungry for employees and that's a good thing.
And I wanted to add, like for the Marshall County program, they had so many employers reaching out to them asking for interns for employment, and they had already filled their positions. And they were like, well, let us go back and we'll talk to the VR counselors in that area and see if they have some individuals that can, maybe consider for those positions that they have vacant. So that's a good thing to have employers calling you, asking, for good employees because of the reputation of Project Search. I think that employers kind of see and look at us a little differently as far as we're training them. We know that these are going to be good employees. Now, and I'm not saying every intern is perfect. Not every intern is perfect. We have some challenges, but we together as a team, as a committee, we address those issues and concerns, and then we move on. So, yeah, that is a good problem to have, people calling, asking for employees.
Yeah. Speaking about employers, if you would give some examples of employers that are involved with Project Search, and maybe how that relationship works. So do you guys reach out to employers? I know you said a lot of employers are calling you, but how do you get the word out about Project Search to employers?
Well, I think a lot of the Project Search sites now have Facebook pages, and they put information out on Facebook. We have our skills instructors that they go at all with the on-site team. They all kind of reach out to various employers about positions that may be that they may have available and open, and do job tours. Go in and kind of see what's happening and what kind of jobs a company may have. And you're in the back of your mind, you're thinking about a particular intern that can do those jobs right there that they may have. So it just varies from site to site. Again, with us being in hospitals, some interns want to work in the hospitals and some do not want to work in the hospital. So it just really depends. But you have a job search team that works together to kind of look at their employment needs, look at their goals and where they want to work. And they're very involved in that process. The interns are very involved in that process.
Now, what would you say to an employer that's thinking about getting involved with Project Search, but maybe doesn't have the experience of bringing on a new team member that may have a disability, and so they're reluctant?
I think sometimes in special education and even in our agency, rehabilitation, we focus a lot on the disability, but employers want to hear more about, can this individual perform the essential functions of this job? And so we can say with training and support or a job coach that we can train those individuals for those jobs that are available for those students. So with the right, I think sometimes you have to change your mindset about how we talk to and how we approach employers. We just work with a diverse group of individuals who have unique learning styles, and that with the right training and support, they're able to perform the essential functions of those jobs that they have open.
Yeah, I feel like from an employer standpoint, it kind of does away with maybe some of the types of words and labels that we use. It's
Right.
like, I don't care as long as you can do this.
Absolutely.
We're just
Absolutely.
everything else doesn't matter. This is a work environment. If you can do your job well, welcome to the team.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of breaking down barriers in a little bit of a way there.
Yes.
In general, why is it hard for people with disabilities to find jobs? We noticed that statistically, those with disabilities are having trouble getting employment.
Well, most of them, they just lack knowledge. I mean, they don't know. They need skills, they need training, they need encouragement, and family support. You know, it's really hard to do anything without someone to support you, even if it's one person. So if you lack family support, sometimes the family has disabilities, whoever their caretaker may have, whether it be age and they're not able to do all the things that they need to do for the person, or it could just very well be that there's other needs in the family. But for me and for the people that I've seen served, they lack family support and self-esteem and confidence. Nobody ever cheered them on along the way and said, you can do it. You know, when you have a perfectly physically able child that doesn't have any challenges educationally, you put them in sports and you put them in activities, you think nothing about sending them off to camps, and you let them engage with others all the time. But the biggest thing you have to do when you're looking for a job, you've got to have a little bit of support and a little bit of self-esteem that says, I think I can do it. And if I can't, I'm willing to try. So that's the things that we struggle with, I think, sometimes with people that have been told you're different, you're differently abled.
And I think sometimes I'm sorry, you may have, like Tonya said, but you may have some students that don't have that family support, and sometimes that VR counsel becomes that support system for them, and we help them along the way. We become those VR moms, I guess you would say, because we want them to be successful. We want them to be exposed to other opportunities and let them know that there's a big world out there. And so let's just kind of see what it is that we need to do to help you be successful in life. So you become, sometimes again, like I said, you become that VR mom. I have a lot of them out there that I've worked with, and I'm still in contact with them. And anytime I ask to come and speak to students, they will come, because we have that relationship. It goes back to, again, having a heart for what we do as an agency. We do. You have to, as I think one of the old commissioners would say, serve from the heart. And that's very true. You have to be very passionate about what you're doing and love what you're doing, and like the people that you're working with. That's very critical, because the students, they need that support system, and we may be it. There are a lot of students out there that are homeless, not homeless in the sense that we think living on the street, but staying with, friends a couple of nights here or there. School systems are preparing breakfast, lunch, dinners, meals for the weekend. So it's very interesting and very different. So you kind of look at what the needs of that student is.
As you were going through that, both going through that, it made me think, just, starting at a young age, if you can have somebody in your corner that's giving you that confidence and that's pushing you to get those new experiences, it can really go a long way. And when you mentioned the counselor kind of being that ADRS counselor mom, as long as you're in the ADRS system at a young age, you'll have that support from ADRS. You'll have somebody in your corner that's saying, hey, you're here in the funnel. You're in 5th grade, or you're in 10th grade, or you're looking for a job now. This is what it looks like, kind of a life coach. And even though you may not get that support necessarily at home, and I read something the other day that said, no matter how you raise your kids, they're always going to find some fault. You can be the best mom, dad in the world, but when your kids get older, they'll always be like, there was this and that. So to have that support from ADRS and kind of push you through there is really big. And for parents, it sounds like, get your kids out the door a little bit more and give them those experiences early on, kind of push them instead of coddling them. Do you guys agree with any of that, or am I just rambling?
I agree, but it's very difficult when a parent has been advocating for their child 12 years of their academic life, and now you're telling me I have to back away. Well, you want them to, we all want them to be able to be independent and self-advocate, but some of them, you just got to hold their hands a little longer. And others, you can just let them fly and they're going to be okay. So it just depends on the individual.
And as we kind of come to a close today, I know we've talked about it before, but if anybody is watching and interested in Project Search, what would be their first step? Say they're already in ADRS, how would they start to make the process into Project Search?
Talk to your
in high
ADRS.
school,
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Tonya.
No, go
I was
ahead.
going to say in high school, the first step is making that connection with the vocational rehabilitation counselor about, you've heard about Project Search, you want to know a little bit more about it, or the VR counselor may reach out to that student and the teachers and start having that conversation about Project Search. So that kind of works for us when those who are really reaching out and saying, I'm interested. And the programs, there's some sites, the program sell itself. So you don't have to do a whole lot of marketing to try to recruit students for the program. But just getting involved in some of the other services that we're providing. Those services is a snapshot into the VR program, letting you see what we can do to help your child be successful after high school, letting that student see these are all the opportunities that are available for you as you make that transition to whether it's going straight into the workforce or moving over into Project Search. So, but we have many services. We have a menu of services that are more individualized once they make that transition into the VR program.
Mrs. Frankum, if you'd like to add anything there.
No, I think that's exactly what I would say, is that being involved early on, saying yes to vocational rehab services when your child's in the 9th grade, and not holding back, letting them get all the services they can get to help them pre-employment wise, and then engage in that VR counselor all along about what the future holds, what transitioning looks like for you guys. How do you want to see your child fly from the nest, so that what skills do they need to do that, and give them a try even when you think they can't. So I'm not saying my child is never going to work. That might be true. It could be very well true. I mean, there is those opportunities where, though, these things happen and you realize there is an actual talent that we can grow in, and that's where Project Search is important. And even our supported employment program, giving them an opportunity to go out and let them try to rise to the occasion.
I'd like to throw a little bit of a curveball. Is there a job for everybody? Is everybody employable?
I think there's something everybody can do. The key for us is exploring what it is they can do by having them participate in various services, job exploration, job shadowing, participation in summer work programs. We have our evaluation unit that can help us identify career pathways that are going to be appropriate for that student. It's about helping them to educate them about what opportunities are out there available and having them to participate. Again, educating the whole family, the student and the family. So I think, yes, there's something everybody could do. It may not be, Project Search may not be for everybody, but we have supported employment programs, as Tonya mentioned. We have other career services through our community rehab programs that we work with to help our students find jobs. So yes, everybody can do something. We just have to identify what that skill set is.
Are there any upcoming events that you would recommend any individuals, families, parents are a part of, whether that's an online meeting or an in-person seminar? Does anything come to mind to recommend to the community?
I think the only thing that I would say is remembering that October is National Disability Awareness Month. Those that want a job right now, that feel like they've trained, they're ready, maybe they've lost their job, maybe they've already been through vocational rehab before, maybe they've got the skills they need, but the job they had fell through. But even the ability job fairs, they've had several this year, because things are now Zoom. That's not always ideal for everybody, but if you're ready to go and you can do it from your home, where you can participate in some of these online job fairs, but certainly the Ability Job Fair, you can go to abilityjobfair.org, and there's multiple things that you'll find online right now, especially during October. Will be a great month to do a lot of research, and a lot of hiring goes on in October. For whatever reason, that's a huge month that a lot more people seem to engage in work. It just, maybe it's because it's fall, but I do think that there's multiple opportunities for people with disabilities. There's so many more opportunities now than there used to be for different job fairs that are geared strictly toward those with disabilities.
Absolutely.
I feel like right now is a hiring spree. If you're looking for employment, set your base of what you want, and people are eager to get you in the door, trained, and ready to go there. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think an individual, family, a parent could benefit from hearing in general? Mrs. Spencer, I'll ask you first.
Well, I want parents to know that we have agencies. I mean, we have VR offices across the state of Alabama. So you can always reach out to one of the local VR offices to gain more information about who we are, what we do. We have VR counselors that are assigned to all of the high schools throughout the state of Alabama. We encourage you to get connected with your VR counselors, get connected with those special education teachers who we're working closely with to see what opportunities are out there and available for your child. So we do want to make sure that they know that we have offices statewide, and we have multiple programs that we can look at and start thinking about how that program is going to benefit their child.
Call your local ADRS, call your local region, get in the system.
That's right. We have it on our website, all the local offices. So yes, get in touch with somebody.
Mrs. Frankum, is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to address with the community?
No, but I do think that one of my tasks is to work with transitional services that are outside just your typical project search. And the biggest struggle is accessing the kids in school in 9th grade, and parents understanding who we are in the 9th grade and following that along through graduation, not just hearing us and saying, I'll deal with that later. Us being involved in the earlier stages now, we're doing a lot of pre-employment things that would benefit your child, whether it be just going out and touring employment sites, touring colleges, doing different types of training that's smart work ethics. What does it mean to be an employee? How do you advocate for yourself? Some people may go all the way through high school and never mention they want to go to college to the VR counselor, and we could have helped them with college prep services. There's lots of things that you get through vocational rehab that every parent wish they could get for their child that does not have a disability, that doesn't qualify for our program. So you mention it. Don't wait for the school to mention it, which they will, but listen, understand it, ask questions. In the 9th grade, make sure if there's a vocational rehab representative, I'd like to be introduced. I want to know who they are, and I want to find out all the things that my child can benefit from through high school. Instead of voc rehab seeking you out, do your part and try to seek us out so that we know who you are, because sometimes people do fall through the cracks for whatever reason. So there's a lot of kids that rotate in and out of school. They move in and they move out. And so just be an advocate for your child. Let us know who you are. Look us up online. We have a great webpage that explains every service that we have. So reach out, and if you think you qualify, try and see. If you don't, what harm was there? Everything we do is free.
I agree with that. I think the services at ADRS, Voc Rehab, if these services were available to the general public, I think everybody would benefit. These services are amazing for the individuals that receive them, and kind of such a benefit there. And so if you're thinking about employment and long term after high school, start in 13, 14 years old. If you're an individual or a parent, start asking those questions. What does it work look like for myself after high school? What does that look like? And getting those services early on will help you transition through that there. Well, I thank you both for giving us the morning today and speaking all about project search and employment after high school there. Thank you once again. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and end the broadcast. So we'll go ahead and kind of give our cameras a little bit of a wave and tell everybody that we will see you guys. I think I don't know if we're here tomorrow or Thursday. I'm not sure yet, but I'll update. Thank you guys once again and have a great day.